The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Galaxy Council station. Park Woo-jin stood near the tall windows and watched the ships come and go. Some were small and fast. Others were massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. At least that was what the aliens believed. Woo-jin was 43 years old. He had gray in his hair and lines on his face from years of difficult work. He was Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. It was not an easy job. The aliens looked at humans the way adults look at small children who have wandered into an important meeting. "Appa, can I see?" A small voice came from behind him. He turned and smiled. His daughter, Park Sora, was standing on her toes, trying to look through the window. She was only 9 years old. Her black hair was tied in 2 braids, and her eyes were full of wonder. Woo-jin lifted her up so she could see better. "Look at that big one," Sora said, pointing at a Goroth warship. It was dark red and covered with weapons. "It looks angry." "The Goroth build everything to look angry," Woo-jin said. "It is their way." "Are they mean?" "They're ... proud. They respect strength above all things." Sora thought about this. "Are humans strong?" Woo-jin did not answer right away. The truth was complicated. Humans had only joined the Council 3 years ago. They were the newest species. The youngest. The weakest, according to the Council's official records. The aliens called humanity a probationary species. This meant they could watch and learn, but they had no real voice in decisions. "We are stronger than they know," Woo-jin finally said. "But sometimes it is wise to let others think you are small, because then they do not watch you too carefully." The Council was ruled by 5 elder races. Each one had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, before humans learned to make fire. The Velthari were insects that walked like men. They were cold and logical. They believed emotions were a disease. The Goroth were giant reptiles with scales like armor. They solved most problems with violence. The Pallid Collective was the strangest of all. They were not individuals, but one mind shared across millions of pale, thin bodies. They could pull thoughts from other beings. They called it knowledge extraction. Others called it something worse. The Scythene were made of light and shadow. No one knew what they truly looked like. They traded in secrets and whispers. And finally there was the Kreth Dominion. They were ancient amphibians with wet skin and cold eyes. They believed that younger species must be tested through pain and hardship. These 5 races controlled everything. They set the laws. They decided which species could join the Council and which would be destroyed. Humans had passed their tests, barely. Now, they were here, watching and waiting. Hoping to prove themselves worthy, Woo-jin had brought Sora with him because Council law promised safety. Diplomatic immunity, they called it. No representative or their family could be harmed on the station. It was the oldest law, and no one had ever broken it. Besides, Sora's mother, Yoon-hana, was very sick. She was receiving treatment on Earth. Woo-jin could not leave Sora alone, and he could not miss this summit. So the little girl came with him to the stars. The aliens found her fascinating. Most species on the Council did not raise their young the way humans did. Velthari hatched thousands of eggs and never met their offspring. Goroth children fought each other from birth, and only the strongest survived. The Pallid Collective had no children at all. They simply divided and copied themselves. But humans? Humans carried their babies inside their bodies. They fed them and held them and sang to them. They would die for their children without hesitation. The aliens thought this was primitive, wasteful, foolish. On the 3rd day of the summit, Woo-jin was called to a long meeting about trade routes. Sora stayed in their quarters with a guard outside the door. She had games to play and books to read. She was a good girl. She always obeyed her father. But children get curious. When the guard stepped away for a moment, Sora heard music. Strange, beautiful music coming from somewhere down the hall. She opened the door just a little and looked out. The hallway was empty. The music continued. She followed it. The station was a maze of corridors and chambers. Sora walked past doors that hissed open and closed. She saw aliens of all kinds. Some ignored her. Some stared. One Gorath soldier looked down at her with its yellow eyes and made a sound that might have been laughter. The music led her to a garden. It was the most beautiful place she had ever seen. Plants from 100 worlds grew under artificial sunlight. Flowers glowed with soft colors. Water flowed in streams that seemed to flow upward instead of down. "Hello, little one," Sora turned. A figure stood behind her. It was tall and thin, with skin like white paper. Its eyes were large and dark with no pupils. It wore robes that seemed to move on their own. "I am Morvith," the figure said. Its voice was soft, like wind through leaves. "I am a high counselor of the Pallid Collective, and you are the human child." Sora remembered her manners. She bowed slightly, the way her father had taught her. "I am Park Sora. I am pleased to meet you." Morvith tilted its head. Its dark eyes studied her the way a scientist might study an insect. "You are very polite, very ... controlled. Your brain must be quite remarkable." "My brain. Human minds are strange to us. You feel so much. Fear, love, hope, anger, all of it swirling together. Yet you function. You build, you grow. We do not understand how." Sora did not know what to say. Something about this creature made her skin feel cold. "Perhaps," Morvith said slowly, "you could help us understand?" Before Sora could speak, her father's voice echoed through the garden. "Sora, there you are." Wujin ran to her and picked her up, holding her tight. He looked at Morveth with hard eyes. "Hi, Counselor. I did not know you were interested in human children. Merely curious, Ambassador. She wandered here on her own." Morveth smiled. At least its face moved in a way that might have been a smile. "You should watch her more carefully. The station can be dangerous for little ones." Wujin said nothing. He carried Sora away quickly. That night, after Sora fell asleep, Wujin stood by her bed and watched her breathe. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The way Morveth had looked at his daughter was not simple curiosity. It was hunger. He sent a message to Earth, just a short one. "Increase security protocols. Something feels wrong. We'll report again tomorrow." He did not know that tomorrow would be too late in another part of the station. Morvith met with the other High Counselors in a chamber hidden from all maps. The Kreth representative was there. So was the Scythian Shadow and the Velthari analyst. "The child's neural patterns are remarkable," Morvith said. "Unlike anything we have recorded, if we could study her brain directly, we might finally understand human resilience." "The diplomatic laws protect her," the Velthari said. "Laws can be bent," the Kreth replied. "Especially for knowledge this valuable." Morvith's dark eyes gleamed. "Then we are agreed. The human child will help us understand her species, whether she wants to or not." The shadows in the chamber seemed to grow darker, and somewhere in her bed, young Sora shivered in her sleep, dreaming of eyes without light. Sora woke up in a place she did not know. The room was white. Everything was white. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. Even the light seemed white, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. She was lying on a cold table made of metal. When she tried to move, she found that her arms and legs were held down by straps. "Appa." Her voice was small and scared. "Appa, where are you?" No answer came. She remembered falling asleep in her bed. She remembered her father kissing her forehead. Then nothing. Just darkness, and now this white room. A door opened. 3 figures walked in. They were Pallid Collective members, tall and thin, with paper-white skin and those terrible dark eyes. One of them was Morvith. "The subject is awake," one of the Pallids said. Its voice had no feeling in it. "Good," Morvith replied. "We can begin." "Begin what?" Sora asked. Her heart was beating very fast. "Where is my Appa?" "I want my Appa." Morvith looked down at her. "Your father is in a meeting. He does not know you are here. By the time he realizes you are missing, we will have learned what we need. What do you want?" "Knowledge, child. Only knowledge. Humans are a mystery to us. You survive things that should kill you. You feel emotions that should destroy your minds. We want to understand how. And the answer is inside your brain. One of the other pallid brought forward a machine. It had long, thin needles and wires that glowed with soft blue light. Sora's eyes went wide with terror. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." "Do not be afraid," Morvith said, but there was no comfort in its voice. "Fear is simply a chemical response. It means nothing." They did not give her anything for the pain. Pain, they explained, was important data. They needed to see how her brain responded to different levels of suffering. It was all very scientific to them. The needles went into her head. Sora screamed far away. In a conference room filled with diplomats, Park Woo-jin suddenly felt cold. He stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, the way a father always knows when his child is in danger. "Ambassador Park?" The Veltheri chairman clicked its mandibles. "Is something the matter?" "My daughter," Woo-jin said. "Where is my daughter?" "I am sure she is safe in your quarters." Woo-jin was already moving. He ran through the corridors, pushing past aliens who shouted at him in languages he did not understand. When he reached his quarters, the door was open. The guard was unconscious on the floor. Sora's bed was empty. Sora. He searched everywhere. He demanded answers from station security. They told him to calm down. They told him that children wander off sometimes. They told him they would find her soon. But hours passed. No one found anything. It was a Goroth soldier who finally helped him. His name was Torek, and he was different from other Goroth. He had fought in many wars and seen much death. It had made him tired of cruelty. "I know where they took her," Torek said quietly. "The Pallid have a research facility in the lower levels. It is not on any official map. Take me there. It is guarded. If you go, they may kill you." Woo-jin's eyes were like steel. "I would burn this entire station to ash for my daughter. Take me there. Now." Torek studied the human for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I was wrong about your kind. You are not weak at all." They moved through maintenance tunnels and forgotten passages. Torek knew the station well. He had been stationed here for 20 years. Finally, they reached a sealed door with guards outside. "I will handle them," Torek said. The Goroth soldier walked toward the guards. They were Pallid Collective members, not warriors. When they saw Torek coming, they raised their weapons. He did not slow down. He broke them both in seconds, quick and clean. Woo-jin ran inside. The facility was a nightmare. There were dozens of rooms, each one filled with machines and screens showing brain patterns. Most were empty. But at the end of the hall, behind a glass window, he saw her. Sora was strapped to a table. Her head was covered with wires and needles. Her eyes were closed. She was not moving. Sora. Woo-jin slammed his fists against the glass. It did not break. Inside the room, Morvith turned to look at him. The High Counselor's face showed no emotion. "Ambassador, you should not be here. Let her go. We are almost finished. Her neural patterns have provided excellent data. Human resilience is even more remarkable than we thought." A Torek appeared beside Woo-jin. The Gorath looked at the glass, then at the door beside it. With one massive shoulder, he smashed through the door. Woo-jin ran to his daughter. He tore the wires from her head as gently as he could. He undid the straps. He lifted her small body in his arms. "Sora, Sora, wake up. Appa is here. Appa is here now." Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she did not seem to recognize him. Then tears began to fall. "Pa," she whispered. "It hurt so much. I called for you. You didn't come. I'm here now, baby. I'm here. I'm so sorry." He carried her out of that terrible place. Morvith did not try to stop him. The High Counselor simply watched with those dark, empty eyes. The next hours were chaos. Woo-jin demanded justice from the council. He showed them medical scans of Sora's brain, the damage from the needles, the trauma she had suffered. He stood before the 5 elder races and demanded that those responsible be punished. They refused. "The child was not permanently harmed," the Veltheri chairman said. "She will recover fully." No laws were technically broken. Nitrogen. Laws. Wujin's voice shook with rage. You tortured my daughter. We gathered knowledge. There is a difference. The Kreth representative spoke next. Your species is young, Ambassador. You do not understand how the galaxy works. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. She is 9 years old. Age is irrelevant. Knowledge is everything. Wujin looked at them. 5 ancient races. 5 empires that had ruled the stars for longer than humanity had existed. They looked back at him with no guilt, no shame, no understanding of what they had done. He picked up Sora, who was clinging to him like she would never let go. This matter is closed, the Velthari said. You may return to your quarters. Wujin stopped at the door. He did not turn around. You are right about one thing, he said quietly. You do not understand humans. You see our love for our children and think it makes us weak. You think because we are small and young, we will accept this? He turned his head just enough for them to see his face. His eyes were no longer the eyes of a diplomat. They were the eyes of something far more dangerous. You have made a mistake that your species will remember for 10,000 years. He walked out that night. With Sora finally sleeping in his arms, sedated by doctors who could not believe what had been done to her, Wujin sent a single transmission to Earth. It was short. Only 12 words. They tortured Sora. They feel no remorse. Activate protocol, Yonsen. On Earth, in a bunker beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, Fleet Admiral Kong Do-yan received the message. He read it 3 times. His face did not change. He did not shout or cry or break anything. He simply turned to his aide and spoke 4 words. Wake the sleeping tigers. The aide's face went pale. Sir, that will mean war with the entire council. Admiral Kong looked at the message again. A child. They had tortured a child. No, he said softly. It will mean the end of the council. Across Earth, in bases hidden deep underground, and ships disguised as cargo vessels, lights began to turn on. Engines began to warm. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come began to prepare. The galaxy had made its choice now. Humanity would make theirs. The galaxy waited for humans to react. The council expected anger. They expected protests and demands. Perhaps the humans would withdraw from diplomatic meetings for a while. Perhaps they would make threats that everyone would ignore. Young species always did this when they felt wronged. They screamed and shouted, and then they accepted their place in the universe. But humanity did not scream. They went silent. It started slowly. Human trade ships stopped arriving at council stations. Human diplomats packed their belongings and left without saying goodbye. Human colonies on the edge of known space went dark, their communication signals simply stopping. At first, the elder races found this amusing. Let them sulk, the Velthari chairman said. They will return when they realize they cannot survive alone. Perhaps they are ashamed, a Scythene whispered from the shadows. They know they cannot challenge us. But weeks passed, and the silence continued. The council sent messages to Earth. No one answered. They sent ships to investigate. The ships found nothing. Human space was empty, quiet, dark. Something was wrong. On Earth, the truth was very different from what the council imagined. In the city of Seoul, Admiral Kong Do-yan stood before a massive screen that showed the entire Terran defense fleet, not the 200 ships the council knew about. The real fleet, the one humanity had built in secret for 200 years, 4,000 warships, battleships the size of small moons, carriers holding thousands of fighter craft, destroyers designed for one purpose, to kill anything that threatened Earth. All of them hidden in asteroid fields, buried under ice on frozen moons, or disguised as mining stations. Status report, Admiral Kang said. All fleets are at full readiness, his aide reported. Ground forces are loaded and waiting. Project Sunfire is operational. Project Sunfire, the weapons program that had been humanity's greatest secret. While the Council had watched Earth's registered military and laughed at its weakness, human scientists had been building something terrible. Weapons that could crack planets. Missiles that could destroy entire fleets. Technology that the elder races believed impossible for such a young species. General Beek Minji entered the command center. She was 51 years old, with short gray hair and scars on her hands from decades of combat training. She led the Terran Marine Corps, 2 million soldiers who had trained for war against aliens their entire lives. "The troops are ready," she said. "They know what happened to the park girl. They know what the council did. I have never seen them so angry or so focused." Admiral Kong nodded. "Good. Anger is useful when controlled." In another part of the facility, Dr. Han Junho checked the final calculations on Project Sunfire. He was a quiet man who wore glasses and rarely raised his voice. He had spent 40 years designing weapons he hoped would never be used. Now they would be. "The yield tests are complete," he told his assistant. "Everything works as designed. Doctor, are you sure about this? These weapons could kill millions." Dr. Han removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. A young girl was tortured for 6 days. She screamed for her father, and no one came. The council laughed and said no laws were broken. He put his glasses back on. His eyes were hard. Some things cannot be forgiven. In a quiet hospital room on Jeju Island, Park Sora lay in a bed, surrounded by machines that monitored her brain activity. She had not spoken much since returning to Earth. She had nightmares every night. Sometimes she woke up screaming about white rooms and needles. Her mother, Yunhana, sat beside her bed every day. Hannah was still sick herself, but she refused to leave her daughter's side. She held Sora's hand and sang old songs, the same songs she had sung when Sora was a baby. Woojin came to visit when he could, but he was busy now. Very busy. One afternoon, Sora spoke for the first time in days.
"Ayama."
Hannah leaned closer. "Yes, my love. Will they hurt other children? Those aliens?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "No. Your Appa and the people of Earth are going to make sure they never hurt anyone again." "How?" Hannah looked out the window at the blue sky and the distant mountains. "Do you remember the stories I told you about our ancestors? How they fought against enemies much larger than themselves? How they never gave up even when everyone said they would lose?" Sora nodded slowly. "We are going to do the same thing. The whole world is going to fight for you, Sora. For you and for every child who might ever be in danger." Sora thought about this. Then she said something that made Hannah's heart both swell and break. "I don't want people to die because of me." Hannah held her daughter close. "They are not dying because of you. They are fighting because of what was done to you. There is a difference. Some things are worth fighting for, even if it is hard, even if it hurts." The council grew worried. They sent an official delegation to Earth. 12 ships, carrying diplomats from all 5 elder races. They expected to land in some human city and deliver their message. "Return to the council. Accept your place. Forget this foolishness." The ships never reached Earth. They were stopped at the edge of human space by a wall of metal. Thousands of ships, all of them pointing weapons at the delegation. The diplomats sent frantic messages demanding to know what was happening. They received one reply. "The Galaxy Council has committed an act of war against the children of Earth. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will only be consequence. You have 12 hours to leave human space. After that, we open fire." The delegation fled. Back on the council station, emergency meetings were called. The elder races argued with each other. Velthari calculated military strengths. The Gorath demanded immediate war. The Scythene whispered about secrets they had collected on humanity. The Pallid Collective said nothing at all. Morvith, the one who had ordered Sora's torture, finally spoke. "This is a bluff. Humans have only 200 ships. Our combined fleets number over 50,000. They cannot possibly threaten us." "Then why are they acting this way?" the Kreth representative asked. "No species has ever defied the council like this, 'cause they are young and foolish. They do not understand the reality of power." But Morvith was wrong. Morvith had made the same mistake the council always made with young species. He saw only what humanity had shown him. He did not see what they had hidden. Admiral Kung Do Yan, recorded a message to be broadcast across the galaxy. It was simple and short. It's people of the galaxy. 3 weeks ago, the Galaxy Council kidnapped and tortured a human child. Her name is Park Sora. She is 9 years old. She committed no crime. She threatened no one. She was taken from her bed and hurt for 6 days while she cried for her father. The Admiral paused. His face showed no anger. His voice was calm. The Council has refused to punish those responsible. They have told us that no laws were broken. They have told us to accept what was done. Another pause. We refuse. From this moment forward, a state of war exists between the Terran Federation and the Galaxy Council. We did not want this war, but we will finish it. Any species that stands against us will be destroyed. Any species that stands aside will not be harmed. Choose wisely. The message ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in shock. A young species, barely 3 years in the Council, had just declared war on the 5 most powerful empires in known space. The Goroth laughed and prepared their fleets for easy victory. The Velthari calculated that humans would be conquered in 3 days. The Scythian began collecting secrets to sell to the highest bidder. The Pallid Collective continued their research. Certain that nothing would change, only the Kreth seemed worried. Their oldest historians remembered something, a pattern. Young species were pushed too far when their children were threatened. Sometimes they became something else entirely. We may have made an error, the Kreth elder whispered, but it was far too late for such thoughts. In the darkness of space, 4,000 human warships began to move. Their engines glowed like angry stars. Their weapons powered up with sounds like thunder. The tigers were awake, and they were very, very hungry. The first battle lasted 6 hours. The Velthari had sent their fastest fleet to teach humanity a lesson. 300 ships, all of them advanced warships with technology perfected over 10,000 years. Their admiral was confident. Humans were primitives. This would be easy. They never saw the trap. Admiral Kong Doyen had studied the Velthari for years. He knew they were logical, predictable. They would attack the most direct route to Earth because it was the most efficient. So he placed his first fleet directly in their path, hiding behind a dead moon. When the Velthari ships came, the humans struck from all sides at once. The Velthari admiral had time to send one message before his ship exploded. There are thousands of them. How are there thousands of them? 287 Velthari ships were destroyed. 13 escaped to warn the Council. The humans lost only 22 ships. The galaxy watched in shock. News spread fast. The humans were not weak. They had hidden their strength, had lied to the Council for 200 years, pretending to be small and harmless. Now they were coming. The second target was Pallid Prime, the home world of the Pallid Collective. Admiral Kong led this attack personally. His flagship, the TNS Remembrance, carried a message on its hull in every language known to the galaxy. We do not forgive. The Pallid had no real military.
How dare you?
They had always relied on their ability to reach into other beings' minds and control them. They had never needed ships or soldiers. They simply made their enemies kill themselves. But human engineers had built something special. Psionic dampeners, small devices that created a field around the wearer, blocking all mental attacks. Every human soldier wore one. Every human ship had them built into the hull. The Pallid screamed into the void with their minds. Nothing happened. Their power was useless. General Beek Minji landed on Pallid Prime with 50,000 Marines. They moved through the white cities like water, fast and unstoppable. The Pallid tried to fight with weapons they barely knew how to use. It did not matter. Find the research facilities, General Beek ordered. Find everyone who was involved in the torture of Park Sora. They will face trial. Her soldiers obeyed. They searched through computer records and interrogated captured Pallid. They found the names of 17 officials who had planned and approved the torture of a 9-year-old girl. Morvith was one of them. The High Counselor was found hiding in an underground bunker. When General Beek's soldiers broke down the door, Morvith tried to reach into their minds one last time. The psionic dampener stopped him cold. You cannot do this, Morvith said. Its voice was thin and frightened now. "I am a High Counselor. I have diplomatic immunity." General Beak looked at the alien who had ordered a child to be tortured in the name of science. Her face showed nothing. "You lost your immunity when you touched our children," she said. "Take him." While the ground war continued, another battle was being fought in the shadows. Intelligence Officer Choi Nara led a team of human hackers against the Scythene. The Scythene were masters of secrets. They knew things about every species in the galaxy. They used this knowledge to control and manipulate. Nara's team broke into the Scythian information networks in 3 days. They did not keep the secrets they found. They did not use them for blackmail or power. They simply released everything to the public, every dirty secret, every hidden crime. It's every shameful truth that the elder races had buried for thousands of years. The Velthari had experimented on their own children to create better workers. The Kreth had destroyed 3 young species who might have threatened their power. The Scythene themselves had started wars between other races just to profit from the chaos. Empires that had stood for millennia began to shake. Populations that had trusted their leaders suddenly saw the truth. Revolutions started on dozens of worlds. The Scythene tried to stop it. They tried to contain the damage. But the truth was already everywhere, spreading faster than they could control. The galaxy was on fire, and humanity had lit the match. Now only the Goreth remained strong. The Goreth were warriors. Unlike the other elder races, they did not rely on tricks or technology alone. Fought with strength and skill, and they respected nothing except power. Their warlord was named Krath. He was 7 feet tall, covered in red scales, with claws that could tear through metal. He had killed hundreds of enemies in personal combat. He had never lost a battle. Krath sent a message to Admiral Kong. "Human, you have surprised us. Your species fights better than we expected, but you have not faced the Goroth. Meet me in single combat. If you win, my people will withdraw from this war. If I win, you will surrender your fleet to me." Many of Admiral Kong's officers told him to refuse. It was too risky. They were winning the war. Why gamble everything on one fight? But Admiral Kong understood something important. The Goroth were watching. If he refused, they would see humanity as cowards. They would fight to the death. Millions would die. If he accepted and won, the war would effectively be over. "I accept," Admiral Kang replied. They met on a small moon, in a crater surrounded by cameras that broadcast to the entire galaxy. Billions of beings watched. Human Goreth, Velthari. Pallid, everyone wanted to see what would happen. Krath arrived first. He was massive, terrifying, his scales gleaming under the artificial lights. He carried no weapons. Goroth duels were fought with claws and teeth and raw strength. Admiral Kong arrived second. He was 60 years old. He was a foot shorter than Krath and weighed half as much. He carried no weapons either. "You are brave, little human," Krath said. "Stupid, but brave. I will make your death quick." Admiral Kong did not reply. He simply raised his fists. Krath attacked. He was fast, much faster than anything that big should be. His claws sliced through the air where Admiral Dezen Kang had been standing. But Admiral Kang was no longer there. The Admiral had trained in combat since he was 5 years old. He had studied every fighting style known to humanity. He knew that he could not match the Goroth in strength, so he did not try. He was faster. He was smarter. And he never gave up. The fight lasted 47 minutes. Krath hit Admiral Kang many times. He broke 2 of the human's ribs. He cut deep gashes in his arms and legs. Any normal being would have fallen. Any normal being would have surrendered. But humans were not normal. Admiral Kong kept fighting. He struck at weak points in the Goroth's armor like scales. He targeted joints and eyes and the soft spots under the arms. He used every trick he knew, every technique he had ever learned. And slowly, possibly, Krath began to tire. The Goroth had never fought anyone like this. His enemies always tried to match his strength and failed. This human refused to fight that way. He was like water, flowing around every attack, always moving, always striking back. Finally, Admiral Kong saw his opening. Krath swung wide, overcommitting to a killing blow. The Admiral ducked under the attack and drove. His elbow into the Gorth's throat. With every bit of strength he had left, Krath fell to his knees, choking. Admiral Kang stood over him, bleeding from a dozen wounds. "Barely able to stand," Yildi said. Krath looked up at the small, broken human who had defeated him. Something changed in his eyes. Not anger. Not shame. Respect, Yield Krath said. The Gorth withdrew from the war. But more than that, they became allies. Krath declared that any species capable of producing warriors like Admiral Kang deserved respect. The Gorth would never fight against humanity again. With the Gorth gone, the war was effectively over. The Velthari sued for peace. The Kreth surrendered unconditionally. The Scythians scattered into the darkness, their power broken. The Pallid Collective was occupied. Their leaders were arrested. Their research facilities were shut down forever. Morvith. And the 16 other officials who had tortured Sora were taken to Earth. To face trial, the war had lasted 11 months. Humanity had won Admiral Kang. Doyan returned to Earth as a hero, but he did not feel like one. He had sent thousands of young people to die. He had ordered the destruction of worlds. He had done what was necessary, but it had cost him something he would never get back. He visited Sora in the hospital. She was recovering slowly. She still had nightmares. But when she saw the Admiral, she smiled for the first time in months. "Thank you," she said quietly. Admiral Kang knelt beside her bed. His wounds were bandaged. His body was broken. But his eyes were gentle. "We should be thanking you," he said. "You showed us what was worth fighting for." Sora looked confused. "I didn't do anything. I just survived." Sometimes, the Admiral said, surviving is the bravest thing of all. Outside the hospital, the sun was setting over the mountains. Somewhere in space, human ships patrolled the borders of what had once been the Council's territory. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had all started because some aliens thought they could hurt a human child without consequence. They were wrong. 1 year after the war ended, the galaxy was a different place. The Galaxy Council no longer existed. In its place, humanity had helped create something new: the Galactic Assembly. Every species had an equal voice, no matter how old or young, how powerful or weak. No more elder races making rules for everyone else. No more young species being treated like children who needed to obey. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was better. The trial of Morvith and the 16 other Pallid officials was held on Earth. In the city of Sol, billions of beings across the galaxy watched the broadcast. For the first time in history, the elder races saw their leaders held accountable for their actions. The evidence was clear. The recordings from the research facility showed everything. Sora's screams, the coldness of the scientists, the complete lack of remorse. When asked to defend himself, Morvith said the same thing he had always said: "We were gathering knowledge." The child was not permanently damaged. No laws were broken. The human judge looked at him for a long moment. "You are correct," she said. "Under the old council's laws, what you did was not technically illegal. That is why we are not charging you under those laws." Morvath's dark eyes flickered with something like hope. "We are charging you under human law. And under human law, what you did has a name. It is called torture. It is called the abuse of a child. It is a crime that carries a sentence of life imprisonment." Morvith and the other officials were found guilty. They were sentenced to spend the rest of their lives on a prison colony far from Earth. They would not be executed. Humanity chose not to kill them, even after everything they had done. Many beings in the galaxy did not understand this. The Goroth, in particular, thought it was weakness. "You should have killed them," Krath told Admiral Kang. "They deserve death." Admiral Kang shook his head. "Death is easy. Living with what they did, knowing they will never be free, knowing the galaxy remembers their crime forever, that is harder." Krath thought about this for a long time. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "You humans are strange. But I think I understand. You want them to suffer." "No," Admiral Kang said. "We want them to think. For the rest of their lives, they will have nothing to do except think about what they did and why it was wrong. Maybe they will never understand. Maybe they will die without feeling remorse. But we give them the chance. And if they do understand, if they feel sorry, then they will have to live with that feeling forever. And that is the worst punishment of all. The formal ceremony creating the Galactic Assembly was held on the old council station. Ambassadors from hundreds of species gathered in the great hall where the elder races had once ruled without question. Park Woojin was there. He was not Earth's ambassador anymore. He had resigned after the war to spend more time with his family. But he had been asked to speak at the ceremony, and he had agreed, so was there too. She was 11 years old now. She stood beside her mother, Hannah, who had finally recovered from her illness. The doctors said she would live a long and healthy life. The Park family would be together, whole, for many years to come. Woojin walked to the podium. The great hall fell silent. Thousands of eyes, of all shapes and colors, watched him. 1 year ago, he began, this galaxy was ruled by fear. The elder races believed that power was all that mattered. They believed that young species existed only to serve them. They believed that cruelty was acceptable if it produced results. He paused, looking out at the crowd. They were wrong. We asked why humans are resilient. You've studied us. You tested us. You even tortured our children trying to understand. But the answer was never hidden. It was never complicated. We love. We love our families. We love our children. We love our friends and our homes and our dreams. That love makes us willing to do anything to protect what matters to us. When you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us. When you threaten our children, you awaken something in us that cannot be stopped. Not because we are violent by nature, not because we enjoy war, but because some things are worth any price. Today we build something new. An assembly where every voice matters, where no child of any species will ever be harmed without consequence, where power comes with responsibility. He turned to look at Sora. She smiled at him, brave and beautiful, despite everything she had endured. My daughter paid a terrible price for this moment. She still has nightmares. She still carries scars that you cannot see. But she told me something last night. She said she doesn't want the galaxy to remember the war. She wants them to remember why it should never happen again. I hope you listen to her. She is wiser than all of us. The applause that followed was the loudest sound the station had ever heard. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Beings of all species mingled and talked. For many, it was the first time they had ever spoken to members of other races as equals. Warlord Krath approached the Park family. He was still enormous and terrifying, but now he wore ceremonial armor instead of battle gear. He had become the Goroth representative to the new assembly. He knelt before Sora. In Goroth culture, this was the highest sign of respect. Warriors only knelt to those they considered worthy of honor. Little warrior, he rumbled. Your suffering woke the sleeping giants. The galaxy will remember. Sora looked at him. A year ago, she would have been afraid of this massive alien. Now she understood that size and appearance meant nothing. Character was what mattered. I don't want them to remember the war, she said. I want them to remember why it should never happen again. Krath was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. You speak like a true leader. Perhaps one day you will sit in the assembly yourself. Sora smiled. Maybe, but first I want to finish school and learn to paint and visit the ocean on different planets. Krath laughed. You have a whole life ahead of you. That is good. That is what we fought for. After the reception, the Park family returned to Earth. They went back to their home on Jeju Island, the same house where generations of Parks had lived for centuries. The mountains were green. The ocean was blue. The sky was full of stars. Admiral Kang Doyan retired that same week. He was tired of war. He wanted to spend his remaining years in peace, growing vegetables and watching the sunset. He deserved that peace, and everyone knew it. General Beek Minji became the first human military liaison to the Goroth. She was perfect for the job. She and Krath argued constantly about tactics and honor and the best way to cook meat. They became close friends. Dr. Han Junho oversaw the dismantling of Project Sunfire. The weapons were taken apart. The blueprints were sealed in secure vaults with the highest classification. Humanity hoped they would never be needed again, but the vaults remained. The blueprints were not destroyed, because humanity had learned a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. Kindness is a choice, and strength is the ability to enforce that choice. Choi Nara continued her work in intelligence, but now her focus was different. Instead of preparing for war, she watched for threats to peace. She built systems to detect any species that might try to abuse another. She made sure that what happened to Sora would never happen again. 50 years passed. The Galactic Assembly became the foundation of a new era. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to cooperate. Trade flourished. Science advanced. Children of all races grew up knowing that they were protected by laws that actually meant something. In a library on what had once been the Velthari homeworld, a young Velthari diplomat was studying ancient records. He found the documentation of the Human Council War. He read about Sora, about the torture, about humanity's response. He was confused. He went to his elder, an old Velthari, who had lived through the war. Were humans always this powerful? The young one asked. The elder clicked his mandibles slowly. He remembered the war. He remembered the fear. He remembered watching his species' greatest fleet destroyed in 6 hours. No, he said, they were not always powerful. They became powerful because we made a terrible mistake. What mistake? We thought their compassion was weakness. We thought their love for their young was primitive sentimentality. We thought we could hurt them without consequence. The elder's eyes grew distant. We learned that there is nothing more dangerous in this universe than a human protecting their child. Nothing more unstoppable. Nothing more terrifying. Do you hate them for what they did? No, I respect them. They did only what we drove them to do. And when they won, they did not destroy us. They did not enslave us. They built something better and invited us to be part of it. That is true strength. The young Velthari thought about this for a long time. What happened to the girl? The one they tortured? The elder smiled, or at least made the closest expression a Velthari could make to a smile. She grew up. She became a painter. Quite famous, actually. Her works hang in galleries across a dozen worlds. She married, had children of her own. She visits the assembly sometimes to remind everyone what we are protecting. Does she hate us? No. She says hatred is too heavy to carry for a lifetime. But she never forgot. None of them ever forget. The young Velthari looked at the old records. He saw the images of the war. He saw the faces of those who had fought and died. He saw Sora as a child and as an adult. We should make sure it never happens again, he said. The elder nodded. That is the lesson. That is why we teach this history. Not to make you afraid of humans, but to make you understand why some lines must never be crossed. Somewhere on Earth, in a house by the sea, an old woman watched the sunset. She had gray in her hair and lines on her face. Her hands were stained with paint. She was surrounded by family, by children and grandchildren who laughed and played without fear. Park Sora had lived a long and beautiful life. She had known pain, but she had also known love. She had seen the worst of the galaxy. She had helped build something better. On her wall hung a painting she had made years ago. It showed a small girl looking up at the stars. The girl was not afraid. She was reaching toward the light. Beneath the painting was a small plaque with words that had become famous across the galaxy. Words that summarized everything humanity stood for. Do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for acceptance. And never ever touch our children. Outside, the stars were coming out. Somewhere among them, ships of all species traveled peacefully. Children of all races slept safely in their beds. The galaxy was at peace. Because once, long ago, some aliens made a mistake, and humanity taught them a lesson they would never forget.